Welcome to a reality where the boundary between the ordinary and the impossible has completely dissolved, leading us into a realm where the landscapes of our planet defy every logic of physics, biology, and survival. Today, we embark on an intensive journey to witness vistas. So, surreal, they make us question if we are still on the same planet, or if we have somehow slipped into a dreamscape generated by another dimension. From massive iron ore trains cutting through desert storms to railways that disappear twice a day beneath the Atlantic waves and mountain passes known as the Pile of Corpses, each destination carries a soul and a mystery that modern science still struggles to fully explain. This is the world at its most unseen and most unforgettable, waiting beyond the edge of belief to challenge everything you thought you knew about travel and engineering. If you are ready to have your senses overwhelmed and your perspective changed forever, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to join our global community of explorers. Let us venture together into the heart of the magnificent as we begin our expedition through the most unbelievable wonders of our world. Bayburt Road D915, Turkey. Do you have nerves of steel to navigate a path that has been officially voted as the most dangerous road in the world, surpassing even the most notorious cliffs of the Andes? Bayburt Road D915, specifically the treacherous Sogandi Pass section, is not a route for the faint of heart, stretching over 106 kilometers of unforgiving Turkish terrain. What makes this road truly terrifying is the Derebasi turns, a series of Deninwanve hairpin bends so sharp and narrow that heavy trucks often find it impossible to navigate them in a single maneuver, requiring precarious reversing near the abyss. Built by the Russian army in 1916 during the tumultuous invasion of Trabzon, the road lacks any form of guardrails or safety barriers, meaning a single centimeter of steering error results in a free fall of hundreds of meters. During the winter and spring, the path is completely reclaimed by ice and snow, while the summer months often bring visibility, killing thick fog that turns the unpaved, gravelly surface into an oil-slick trap. Local drivers call it the highway to hell, a place where the margin for error is absolute zero, and survival depends entirely on skill and the hope that no oncoming traffic appears at the worst possible moment. To drive the D915 is to engage in a high-stakes dance with gravity, a journey through a landscape that refuses to forgive mistakes, offering an adrenaline-soaked experience that feels more like a survival trial than a transportation route. It remains a legendary test for adventurous souls who wish to see the world from the very edge of the precipice, where the silence of the mountains is broken only by the roar of an engine struggling against the thin air and the shifting stone. North Yungas Road, Bolivia. At this narrow strip of asphalt and dirt in the Andes, the mountain acts like an active predator waiting for a single slip of the wheel, earning this route the haunting title of the Road of Death. Connecting the high-altitude capital of La Paz with the lush, humid Yungas region of the Amazon rainforest, The road plunges from an altitude of 650 meters at de la Cumbre Pas to Just 200 meters in a matter of miles. This staggering descent of over 600 meters is one of the longest continuous downhill stretches on the planet, carved into the side of the Cordillera Oriental mountain range. The roadway is rarely wider than 3 meters, bordered on one side by a vertical rock wall and on the other by a sheer, unprotected drop of nearly 600 meters into a green oblivion. What makes this road a living nightmare is its unique and counterintuitive traffic law. It is the only place in Bolivia where vehicles drive on the left, ensuring that drivers have a clear view of their outer tires relative to the crumbling edge of the cliff. Before a safer alternative route was built, estimates suggested that between 200 and 300 people lost their lives here every single year, their memories marked by the dense clusters of crosses and stone memorials lining the path. The surface is a treacherous slurry of mud and loose gravel, often hidden beneath a layer of thick fog or doused by waterfalls that pour directly onto the road. To cross the North Yungas is to participate in a gamble with fate, a visceral reminder of human fragility against the massive, indifferent scale of the mountains, where the necessity of connection is the only thing stronger than the fear of the abyss. Soy La Paz, India. Imagine us standing at a sky-high gateway where the road beneath you is nothing more than a muddy, gravelly shelf carved into the side of the Himalayas, and the margin for survival is measured in mere millimeters. Sochi La Paz is a critical lifeline connecting the Kashmir Valley with the remote region of Ladakh. But it is an environment where the road itself acts as a deceptive ghost that can swallow the unwary whole. At an altitude of over 500 meters, the pass is surrounded by steep, snow-capped peaks and ravines that remain hidden beneath a layer of thick, suffocating fog for much of the year. The route is often so narrow that a massive truck and a small car can barely squeeze past each other, forcing one vehicle to hover precariously over the edge of a bottomless abyss while the ground vibrates under the weight. Frequent landslides leave the road covered in fresh rubble and sharp stones, making the journey feel more like a grueling off-road expedition than a drive on a national highway. The pass holds records for extreme snowfall, with accumulation reaching up to 80 feet, creating a constant avalanche risk that shuts down all traffic for 6 months each year. For travelers with a fear of heights, the sight of nothing but white clouds and distant glaciers, visible from the window, is enough to trigger intense vertigo. It is a journey for the truly brave, a place where the wind howls with savage intensity and the majesty of the mountains serves as a reminder of our own insignificance. Every breath taken in this oxygen-depleted air is a testament to the power of human persistence to maintain a connection across the most vertical and hostile frontier on Earth. Guoliang Tunnel Road, China. How could 13 ordinary farmers, with no engineering background and no modern machinery, use only sledgehammers and chisels to pierce through a massive limestone mountain for 5 long years? The Guoliang Tunnel in the Taihang Mountains is the visceral answer to that question. A 2-kilometer corridor that serves as a monument to extraordinary labor and the stubborn refusal of humanity to be defeated by isolation. Before 1972, the village of Guoliang was a city in the sky, perched atop a sheer cliff with only a series of steep, deadly stone steps known as the Stairway to Heaven to connect it to the world. In a desperate bid for survival, the villagers sold their livestock and medicinal herbs to buy basic tools, carving the road centimeter by centimeter through the hard rock. The result is a winding, jagged corridor only 5 meters high and 4 meters wide, featuring 35 hand-hewn windows that look out onto a vertical abyss hundreds of meters deep. These openings offer no guardrails, providing a direct and dizzying view of the empty air that separates the road from the valley floor below. Driving through this tunnel is an emotional journey that shifts from the claustrophobia of the dark, rough-cut rock to the breathtaking awe of the mountain vistas visible through the stone gaps. It is a place where every strike of the chisel is still visible in the walls, telling the story of a community that dared to break through the impossible to reach the light. This tunnel is not just a transportation route. It is a declaration of human will, proving that when the path is blocked by the weight of the earth, we will simply carve our own way to freedom. Passage du Gois, France. You only have a 90-minute window twice a day before this road is completely swallowed by the Atlantic Ocean, turning your vehicle into a target for corrosive saltwater and the rising tide. The Passage du Gois in the Vendée department of France is a 4. Kilometer natural tidal causeway that connects the mainland to the island of Noirmoutier. but it is a path that demands absolute respect for the clock. Usually, it looks like a normal stone road flanked by leaning fishing boats. But as the high tide surges in, the water rises between 1 to 4 meters, causing the road to vanish entirely from the map. The danger here is a matter of timing and overconfidence. Drivers who miscalculate the tide find themselves trapped in a race against the advancing sea, with the water often rising around their tires while they are still halfway across. The surface of the stones is notoriously slippery, covered in a thin layer of seaweed and silt that makes every turn a test of traction, especially for those on motorbikes or bicycles. For those caught by the waves, the authorities have installed elevated life-saving rescue towers where travelers can climb to escape the drowning tide, but their vehicles are almost certainly lost to the depths. Even when the road is dry, thick fog or powerful sea winds can reduce visibility to zero, turning a simple drive into a claustrophobic trek through a watery void. It is a unique geographical challenge that reminds us of the ocean's absolute power to erase human infrastructure at will. The site stands as a sanctuary of time where the boundary between the land and the sea is temporarily and beautifully erased, inviting the brave to cross before the Atlantic reclaims its territory. Stelvio Pass, Italy. At an altitude of 757 meters, you are standing atop the highest paved mountain pass in the Italian Alps, a place where the air is crisp, with the scent of pine and the road beneath your wheels, is a masterpiece of technical cruelty. Connecting the Valtellina Valley in Lombardy with the South Tyrol region near the Swiss border, the Stelvio Pass is a legendary skill-based test that demands absolute focus at every single corner. The real challenge lies on the eastern side, where a staggering 48 hairpin turns are numbered in reverse order toward the summit, serving as a rhythmic countdown for the brave. To navigate this ascent, a driver must constantly shift into low gears, brake with surgical precision, and steer as fast as humanly possible, all while praying that no oncoming vehicle appears around a blind, narrow bend. As you ascend through the lush green pine forests, the engine roars against the thin atmosphere, and your heart races in sync with the mechanical strain of the car. Upon reaching the peak and looking back, the series of curves you have just conquered looks like a giant, coiled snake draped across the mountainside, a visual so iconic that the famous show Top Gear once declared this the world's greatest driving route. It is a dream destination for cyclists, motorcyclists, and motorists alike, having been designed by the genius engineer Carlo Donagani and built between 1820 and 1824 with the labor of those 500 workers. The precision of the engineering is a testament to the early 19th century vision, allowing heavy carriages of the past to turn around without plummeting into the deep ravines. To drive the Stelvio is to experience the perfect marriage of historical engineering and the raw majesty of the Alps. A place where the thrill of the road is matched only by the breathtaking views of the surrounding glaciers. Los Caracoles Pass, Chile. Imagine a gigantic asphalt staircase winding its way up a sheer cliff face in the middle of the Andes, a path so sinuous and repetitive that it earned the haunting nickname the Snail. Situated on the border between Chile and Argentina, Los Caracoles Pass is a breathtaking battle between civil engineering and the indomitable power of Mother Nature. As your vehicle begins the ascent, the first sensation is not one of fear, but of profound awe at the series of 29 consecutive hairpin turns that spiral upward as a giant spring dropped into a ravine. Reaching an elevation of approximately 200 meters above sea level, the air becomes dangerously thin, causing car engines to groan under the pressure and human hearts to race with the thinning oxygen. The Chilean side of the pass is particularly notorious for its complete lack of protective barriers or safety guardrails, meaning that even a minor lapse in concentration could lead to a catastrophic free fall. What makes this route truly dramatic is the presence of oversized, heavy-duty container trucks that serve as the vital lifeline for trade between the two nations. Watching these massive vehicles perform 180-degree turns on such narrow, slippery ledges is a pulse-pounding spectacle. For much of the year, the road is reclaimed by a thick blanket of snow and ice, transforming the asphalt into a suspended ice rink where traction is a fleeting illusion. Unlike modern highways that utilize tunnels to bypass the mountain's wrath, Los Caracoles remains a pristine and adventurous relic of a time when the only way over the stone was to face it directly. It requires drivers to have nerves of steel and a deep respect for the terrain, offering a journey where every meter of progress is a hard-won victory against the gravity and the elements of the high Andes. Taroko Gorge Road, Taiwan. Step into a world of majestic marble cliffs and a turquoise river flowing violently below, where the road is a narrow scar carved directly into the bone of the mountain. Officially known as a section of National Highway 8, the Taroko Gorge Road in eastern Taiwan is one of the most stunning yet challenging scenic routes on the planet. The terrain is so restrictive that many stretches are wide enough for only one vehicle, forcing oncoming cars to edge right up against the vertical rock or pull into tiny rocky niches to allow passage. The road features dozens of hand-carved tunnels of varying lengths, most of which are completely devoid of streetlights. Entering them feels like plunging into a pitch-black abyss, where the only guide is the glow of your own headlights and the hope that no oncoming traffic has broken high beams. This road is a symbol of silent sacrifice, built primarily in 1956 by veterans and former soldiers who wielded only shovels, sledgehammers, and hand drills to conquer the impenetrable marble. In areas where drilling was impossible, workers were lowered by ropes from the mountaintops to break the rock from above, turning the cliffside into a second grave for many who perished during construction. The danger here is amplified by Taiwan's storm-prone climate, as heavy summer downpours can trigger massive landslides or dislodge enormous boulders that tumble from the heights without warning. Even a minor earthquake is enough to turn the picturesque marble ceiling into a source of deadly falling objects, making this a route that should only be traversed by experienced local drivers. To travel through Taroko Gorge is to witness a landscape of breathtaking beauty that hides a history of immense human labor and the constant threat of nature's unpredictable fury. Skipper's Canyon Road, New Sialand. If there is one place on Earth where car rental companies will immediately void your insurance and reject your claims, it is the treacherous strip of shale and gravel known as Skipper's Canyon Road. This is not a path for the faint of heart or the casual driver, as it represents a high-stakes dance on a crumbling blade. Carved into vertical canyon walls high above the Shotover River during the gold rush of the Ichunses Sanctas, the road was hewn almost entirely by hand using explosives and pickaxes because transporting heavy machinery into the canyon was an impossible task. The engineers of that era faced the challenge of sheer slate cliffs, cutting a ledge, just wide enough for a single horse-drawn carriage with a chasm hundreds of meters deep on the other side. Today, the paved surface has long since vanished, replaced by a slippery, dusty gravel track that can fracture and slide beneath your tires during heavy rain. The margin for error here is absolute zero. Encountering another car requires a perilous reverse maneuver for up to centimeters to reach the nearest turnout, a task that tests the precision and sanity of even the most seasoned travelers. The highlight of this terrifying journey is the Skipper Suspension Bridge, completed in 1901, which hangs nearly 100 meters above the turquoise water below. As you cross, the bridge sways gently in the mountain wind, forcing you to hold your breath and confront the sheer verticality of the landscape. It is a journey defined by ancient grit and absolute isolation. A place where the history of greed and survival is written in the very dust you kick up. To traverse Skipper's Canyon is to step back into a world where human will was the only technology that mattered, offering a sense of absolute freedom that can only be found at the very edge of safety. Fiery Meadows Road, Pakistan. Do not attempt to drive this road yourself, for here the path is a notoriously narrow, unpaved jeep trail where your life depends entirely on the skill of local drivers who understand the rhythm of the shifting stones. Stretching 16 kilometers from the Raikot Bridge on the Karakoram Highway to the village of Tato. The Fairy Meadows Road is a harrowing ascent carved directly into the mountainside by the hands of local villagers. This is a world of high-risk off-roading where the road is barely wide enough for a small convertible quadripiquator, and the lack of guardrails means that every pothole and bump feels like a potential descent into the abyss. The terrain is a treacherous mix of loose gravel and sand, making the surface incredibly slippery after even a light rain or a minor landslide. As the vehicle bounces over deep ruts and swerves sharply to avoid falling rocks, your heart will pound with a rhythm of pure survival, especially when looking down at the sheer drops that define the Nanga Parbat region. There are no U-turns here and no room to avoid oncoming traffic. If two vehicles meet, one must reverse for kilometers along the edge of the cliff until a widening spot is found. Despite the rumors of danger, actual accidents are rare, but the psychological pressure inside the vehicle is extremely real and suffocating. It is a journey for those who crave genuine adventure and are willing to surrender their fate to the mountains in order to reach the stunning meadows and the towering summit of Nanga Parbat. This road is a living testament to human audacity, proving that the most beautiful places on Earth often require a terrifying toll of adrenaline and bravery to reach. It remains a sanctuary of raw, untamed landscape where the vertical world reminds you at every curve of the thin line between life and the screaming depths below. Dieth Railway, Thailand. Stepping onto an old wooden train carriage at Kanchanaburi Station is not just a ride, it is a journey through a dark chapter of history defined by immense suffering and the astonishing resilience of the human spirit. Known globally as the Death Railway, this line was constructed during the 1920s under the most brutal conditions imaginable, and as the engine begins its rhythmic rumbling, the pungent smell of engine oil transports you back to an era of desperate survival. The most iconic and terrifying highlight is the death curve, where the train slows to a crawl to approach a fragile wooden trestle bridge that clings precariously to the side of a sheer limestone cliff. To your left, the rough rock surface is so close that you feel as though you could touch the history etched into the stone just by reaching out your hand. To your right, a deep gorge opens up, revealing the turquoise waters of the River Kwai flowing turbulently far below. As the carriage tilts slightly and the ancient wood groans under the immense weight of the steel wheels, you are forced to confront the staggering fragility of the structure and the cost of its creation, which claimed the lives of over 100,000 laborers and prisoners of war. There are no modern safety nets here. There is only the rhythmic clatter of metal on rail and the haunting silence of the jungle that has reclaimed the surrounding peaks. It is a place of profound unease and magnificent views, a dramatic drama of humanity's confrontation with nature and time that remains one of the most sobering and unforgettable railway experiences in the world. To ride the Death Railway is to witness the triumph of persistence over impossible odds, where the beauty of the landscape serves as a silent eulogy for those who built this path through the bones of the mountain. James Weblove Duke Dalton Highway, USA. Imagine a road so isolated and hostile that it stretches for 4,040 miles into the frozen heart of the Arctic, where the wind howls with a primal fury and the concept of a highway is reduced to a thin strip of gravel and ice. The Dalton Highway in Alaska, running from Livengood straight up to the industrial outpost of Dead Horse near the Arctic Ocean, is renowned as one of the most dangerous and lonely roads in all of North America. Originally built to support the Trans-Alaska Pipeline and the massive oil fields of Prudhoe Bay, this is an environment where the elements are an active threat to survival. In the brief summer months, the air is filled with billowing clouds of choking dust that can reduce visibility to near zero, while the winter brings temperatures that plummet to -40 degrees Celsius and snowstorms that can bury the road in minutes. Only 40% of the route is paved with asphalt, leaving the rest as a treacherous surface of loose gravel that can shatter windshields and shred tires in an instant. The undisputed road kings here are the massive oil tankers that thunder across the permafrost. Drivers are warned to give them absolute priority, as they are known for kicking up heavy debris and leaving smaller vehicles stranded in their wake. The most harrowing section is the Atigun Pass, the highest pass in the state, which features steep gradients and sharp turns that become incredibly slippery and prone to avalanches during the long polar night. There are almost no services along this route, meaning that a mechanical failure or a moment of inattention can turn a routine drive into a desperate survival situation in a wilderness where help is days away. It is a journey for those with a spirit of absolute endurance. A place where the majestic scale of the Brooks Range reminds you that you are merely a visitor in a world ruled by ice and iron. Pamban Bridge Route, India. Imagine you are sitting in a dilapidated train carriage, but instead of the usual clatter of wheels hitting the tracks on solid ground, you are moving across a thin, rusted strip of steel that runs for nearly dos. Tres kilometers straight out into the vast, churning waters of the Indian Ocean. The Pamban Bridge, connecting the Indian mainland with Rameswaram Island, is a mechanical marvel that feels like a high-stakes gamble with the forces of the sea. The first sensation that hits you as the train begins its slow crawl across the waves is not the speed, but the overwhelming power of the wind. With no sturdy railings, no dividing barriers, and no protective walls, the carriage tilts slightly under the force of the ocean gales. And you can hear the wind whistling through the gaps in the doors with a haunting intensity. Looking down from the window, the deep blue sea is only a few meters away from the deck, and you can see the white foam of the waves crashing directly against the salt-corroded pillars that have held this structure since 9154. This is the first sea bridge in India, and its unique double-leaf bascule section can be raised to allow large ships to pass. But for the passengers on board, it feels as though the entire train is floating on the surface of the abyss. The air is thick with the scent of salt and the metallic tang of rusted iron, a reminder that the environment is constantly trying to reclaim the bridge back into the depths. It is a combination of pristine coastal beauty and extreme psychological fear, a journey where you feel incredibly small and exposed before the vastness of the water. To cross the Pamban Bridge is to participate in a dramatic confrontation between human engineering and the relentless rhythm of the tides. A place where the line between the land and the infinite blue is temporarily and precariously erased. Nariz del Diablo, Ecuador. There is a railway in the heart of the Ecuadorian Andes so challenging and steep that it earned the fearsome name, the Devil's Nose, a historic route that stands as a testament to the high price of progress and human audacity. Located in the province of Chimborazo, this line connects the town of Alausi with Sibambi by descending a near-vertical rock face that once seemed impossible for any locomotive to conquer. To achieve this feat, engineers designed a series of ingenious switchbacks where the train does not move forward in a straight line, but zigzags back and forth along the side of the mountain. The train rolls past the edge of the cliff, stops, and then reverses down the next section of the slope before moving forward again, a mechanical dance that feels like playing a game of life and death with gravity. The construction of this path in the early 20th century was so perilous that it reportedly claimed the lives of overdose. Viro zero workers due to landslides, disease, and falls into the ravines, making every meter of track a memorial to those who perished. As you sit inside the carriage, your heart will pound against your ribs as the train clings to the narrow ledges, but the view of the jagged volcanic landscape is so breathtakingly beautiful that it momentarily eclipses the fear. The sheer verticality of the terrain is overwhelming. And at certain points, the tracks seem to vanish into the thin mountain air, leaving you suspended between the clouds and the valley floor. Although modern safety improvements have been made and passengers are no longer allowed to ride on the roof as they once were, the sensation of danger remains extremely real. It is a pulse-pounding experience that challenges the limits of traditional rail travel, proving that human persistence can carve a lifeline through the most hostile rock formations on the planet. Traento de Clouds, Argentina. If I had to use one word to describe this journey through the high-altitude deserts of the Argentine Northwest, I would use the word breathtaking, for here you are literally traveling at eye level with the clouds. Known as the Tren a las Nubes, this is one of the highest railways in the world, reaching a staggering altitude of over 200 meters above sea level as it traverses the rugged terrain of the Salta province. The most iconic highlight of the route is the La Polvorilla Viaduct, a massive steel structure that curves across a deep desert canyon, with no railings to obscure the dizzying view of the abyss below. What makes this engineering feat truly impressive is the system of zigzags and spiral loops used to conquer the steep Andean slopes. The train does not rely on traditional cogwheels, but instead reverses and moves forward in a strategic pattern to climb the mountains. As the locomotive hurtles past the very brink of the reddish cliffs, the metal shrieks against the rails in a sound of pure terror and excitement that echoes through the silent, arid valley. The air at this height is incredibly thin, making every breath a conscious effort and adding to the surreal, dreamlike atmosphere of the journey. Looking out from the panoramic windows, you are greeted by a monochromatic landscape of weathered stone and vast salt flats that feel more like the surface of a distant planet than a part of South America. It is a masterclass in 19th century engineering that transformed the dangers of the terrain into a graceful, mechanical dance on the tracks. To stand on the viaduct as the wind howls through the steel beams is to feel the insignificance of humanity amidst the vastness of nature. A moment of profound awe where the solid world seems to merge with the infinite blue of the sky. Mapi Leng Pass, Vietnam. Close your eyes and listen to the wind whistling through the razor-sharp limestone peaks. Then feel the cold mist rising from the Nyoke River as it snakes through the deepest canyon in Southeast Asia. Located in the remote northern province of Hajang, the Mapi Leng Pass is not just a road. It is a dramatic scar carved into the backbone of limestone giants that define the northern frontier of Vietnam. From its highest viewpoints, the scale of the world feels both brutal and magnificent, as the Tusan Canyon opens like a sacred wound in the earth, dropping a full 1,000 meters to the emerald water below. For centuries, the existence of the local Hmong communities here has known nothing of comfort. Only of an unshakable will to survive against the unforgiving rock. They have achieved the impossible by wresting sustenance from vertical slopes, meticulously cultivating maize in the tiny cracks of sharp rocks with a tenacity that moves the soul. Do not look for opulences here. Only the raw and noble truth of human survival is on display in every terrace. The Road of Happiness, built by the hands of tens of thousands of youth volunteers from different ethnic groups between 1959 and 1965, stands as a monument to the sweat and blood required to bridge the gap between isolation and the rest of the world. Each curve is a story of bravery, where humans have conquered the Horse's Nose Ridge to turn this arid land into a globally renowned natural wonder. It remains a sanctuary of stone and mist, where the rhythm of the seasons dictates the pace of life, a place where the history of a nation is written in the very bone of the mountain. Standing on the edge, looking down at the thread-like river, you realize that the most beautiful paths are often those carved out of pure necessity and courage, proving that human will can turn even the most treacherous cliffs into a gateway of happiness. Karakoram Highway, Pakistan. Imagine a road so ambitious and high that it has been dubbed the eighth wonder of the world, a staggering feat of international engineering that connects Pakistan and China across the most vertical mountain ranges on the planet. The Karakoram Highway stretches approximately 300 kilometers, reaching a maximum altitude of 714 meters at the Kunjerab Pass, making it the highest paved international road in existence. To understand the true weight of this achievement, one must look at the human cost of its construction. It is a costly lesson about the price of development, as more than 1,000 workers lost their lives to landslides, falls into ravines, and mine explosions during the 20 years it took to complete. Even today, the highway is a landscape of constant motion and danger, frequently blocked by massive rock slides, flash floods, and moving glaciers that prove nature has never truly surrendered to the asphalt. Driving along this route offers spectacular views of the Himalayas, the Karakoram, and the Hindu Kush ranges, but the psychological pressure is absolute as the road clings to unstable cliffs with no room for error. The air at these heights is so thin that simply breathing becomes a challenge for the unacclimatized, and the weather can shift from brilliant sunshine to a blinding snowstorm in a matter of minutes. It stands as the strongest declaration of friendship between two nations, a fragile strip of asphalt that serves as a vital economic corridor, despite being one of the most dangerous roads in the world. To travel the Karakoram is to witness the epic struggle between human ambition and the raw, towering scale of the earth, a journey through a world of granite and ice that reminds us of the staggering persistence required to bridge the gap between empires. Kolyma Highway, Russia. Venture into one of the coldest and most somber regions on the planet to witness a roadway that is as much a memorial as it is a transportation route, known hauntingly to history as the Road of Bones. Stretching approximately 200 kilometers between Magadan and Yakutsk, the Kolyma Highway was built during the Stalin era by hundreds of thousands of prisoners from the Gulag labor camp system. In extreme subarctic conditions where temperatures frequently drop below 50 degrees Celsius, these men toiled with only pickaxes, shovels, and wheelbarrows to carve a path through the frozen permafrost. Because the ground was frozen as solid as rock, digging traditional graves for those who perished from exhaustion and cold was an impossible task. Instead, the fallen were buried directly beneath or beside the road as it was being built up, turning the highway into a literal graveyard that spans the vast Siberian wilderness. Construction on permafrost is an engineering nightmare, as the road slopes steeply and is surrounded by dry stone walls for almost its entire length to prevent the structure from sinking into the thawing muck. Today, it remains a strategic link for resource exploitation, but the atmosphere is one of profound isolation and eerie silence, with no cell phone signal and few signs of life for hundreds of miles. To drive the Kolyma is to encounter a piece of the earth where human suffering has been petrified into the infrastructure, a place where the history of the 20th century is written in the very dust and gravel beneath your tires. It is a journey of ancient grit and absolute cold, a sanctuary of memory that serves as a terrifying reminder of the raw power of the elements and the resilience of those forced to conquer them. Atlantic Ocean Road,
Norway.
in Norway, engineers have created a provocative masterpiece of civil engineering that does not merely cross the sea, but seems to dance across the waves of the Atlantic, creating an unforgettable and kinetic driving experience. The Atlantic Ocean Road is an 3-kilometer stretch of National Highway 64 that connects the town of Averøy to the mainland through a series of 8 bridges that leap from island to island. The construction process was a legendary battle against the environment, lasting 6 years and enduring 12 major hurricanes that swept away equipment and forced several evacuations of the workforce. The most iconic feature is the Storseisundet Bridge, known for its dramatic and cantilevered curve that makes it appear from certain angles like a bridge to nowhere that simply ends in mid-air. When the North Atlantic storms arrive, the road becomes a battleground where massive waves crash directly against the seawalls and spray covers the windshields of those brave enough to cross. Despite its shorter length compared to desert highways, the danger here is specific to the unpredictable Nordic weather, which can turn a scenic drive into a claustrophobic trek through salt and mist in seconds. The route is recognized as a national scenic route and is regularly maintained to withstand the corrosive power of the ocean, offering ideal spots for photography that capture the perfect and powerful harmony between human ingenuity and the maritime world. To drive this road is to feel the heartbeat of the ocean beneath your tires, a crossing of sea and wind that briefly makes the solid world feel as though it might just vanish into the deep blue. It remains a symbol of Norwegian audacity, proving that even the most violent storms cannot stop the human desire to connect the edges of our world. BR 116, Brazil. If you believe that a highway is merely a stretch of asphalt designed for transport, this Brazilian federal route will force you to reconsider everything you know about travel. For here, the journey does not evoke excitement, but rather a state of extreme, suffocating tension. Known as the second longest highway in Brazil, the BR 116 stretches over 4,300 kilometers along the vast coastline, but its most terrifying and lethal section lies deep within the jagged mountains between Curitiba and Sao Paulo. Driving through this region is often described by locals as playing a high-stakes survival game, where the steep, hilly terrain is a labyrinth of constant hairpin bends and treacherous inclines that test the thermal limits of any braking system. A single moment of inattention or a minor steering mistake can send a vehicle plunging hundreds of meters into the dark, forested ravines that wait silently beneath the cliffs. However, the true danger of the BR 116 is not found in the geography alone, but in the overwhelming and aggressive density of the traffic. Thousands of massive, heavy-duty trucks roar through the mountain passes from night until dawn, driven by operators facing tremendous time pressure to deliver cargo across the continent. This environment breeds a culture of extreme recklessness where drivers frequently swerve into opposing lanes and perform daring overtakes on blind curves just to shave minutes off their grueling delivery schedules. The sound of echoing air horns against the monolithic rock faces is one of the most haunting auditory experiences a traveler can encounter, serving as a rhythmic, metallic warning of a metal python that never sleeps. Furthermore, the route is notorious for infrequent police patrols, leaving travelers vulnerable to the constant threat of armed gangs and highway robbers who target stranded vehicles in the most isolated and fog-shrouded stretches. To traverse the BR-116 is to witness the raw, unfiltered pulse of South American logistics, a place where human life is weighed against the speed of cargo. Underground beneath you is a site of constant motion and potential destruction. It is an epic documentation of modern industrial endurance that challenges the very laws of safe navigation, proving that the most unreal and dangerous places are often those where humanity has built a machine that simply refuses to slow down. We have reached the end of our journey across the most extreme and extraordinary roads and railways on our planet. But the echoes of these incredible landscapes will surely remain in your mind long after the screen goes dark. From the Road of Bones in Russia to the Road of Death in Bolivia, we have seen that the Earth is a place of both terrifying danger and breathtaking beauty. Each destination we explored today is a testament to the resilience of nature and the enduring spirit of human discovery and engineering. We hope this voyage has inspired you to see the world with new eyes and to appreciate the wonders that lie just beyond our horizons. If you found these stories as amazing as we did, please give this video a thumbs up and share your favorite extreme location in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell to join our global community of explorers for more journeys into the unknown and the impossible. Your support helps us continue uncovering the most magnificent places on Earth. Until next time, stay curious, stay adventurous, and keep exploring the magnificent world we call home. Goodbye for now.